Well, hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to Rattlecast number 73. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode. Before we begin, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do this because we love poetry. And if you love poetry like we do, please be sure to click the like button and share and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. Follow us if you're on Facebook or whatever you can do. On Facebook, the notifications are really good, so turn those on. Click the bell on YouTube. Whatever platform you use, I'm sure there's something you can do to click, and that would be very helpful. Now, for the warm-up poem today, I thought we would go to the random button. And what came up at random was Julie Price Pinkerton's poem, What Is My Life About? And let's just play that here. This is Julie Price Pinkerton. What is my life about?
What is my life about? This naked, lonely question is still simmering in a crock pot on the counter of a beach bungalow where no one lives. But if you like, I can show you some examples of what falls out of my life when it's whacked like a piñata. My friend Emily reminisces about the cat she used to have and still misses. Clearly, Pippin and I were telepathic. In my collection of very bad Christmas decorations, there is a cloisonné manger scene with a baby Jesus who has a snout like a piglet. I've been criticized for always looking downward when I walk. But in only 5 decades, I have found enough coins to sink a rowboat. If I were a household object, I would insist on being a gooseneck lamp or the yarn mane of a toy horse. Most of my prayers are like drive-by shootings. Please help me. Please save her. Thank you for the parking spot.
That was Julie Price Pinkerton with What Is My Life About from mail number 45. Julie Price Pinkerton has been a professor. Where did the note go? I looked it up again. Julie Price Pinkerton has been teaching creative writing and rhetoric at the University of Illinois since 1998. She was also the winner of the 2016, I think, Rattle Poetry Prize, and you can find more of her at Julie Price Pinkerton. It's kind of all how you'd expect to spell it, juliepricepinkerton.com. So find out more about her there. Now, as I mentioned, today's guest poet is Skye Jackson. Skye Jackson is a finalist for this year's Rattle Poetry Prize. She was born in New Orleans, currently is an MFA candidate in poetry at the University of New Orleans Creative Writing Workshop, where she serves as an associate poetry editor of Bayou Magazine. And her book, A Faster Grave, was published by Antenna last year. And here it is. I'll put it on screen really quick. It's a beautiful book with wonderful artwork. This is A Faster Grave by Skye Jackson with artwork by Santos Calavera. And here she is, Skye Jackson. Hey, Skye, how you doing? Oh, you're still on mute. Sorry. Yeah, unmute yourself.
Oh my goodness! Sorry.
No, that's no problem. Usually, as veteran viewers will know, usually it's me that forgets to unmute myself or somebody else. So that's no problem. At least it's not me this time. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I'm really excited to be here and to read some poetry. I feel like it's been so long since I've gotten to read something, so I'm really excited.
Yeah. Do you want to start us out with a poem?
Sure, I'd love to. Let me just pull up my poem. Have another window going here. The first poem that I'm going to read for you guys tonight is called Far Too Kind. Do I?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and start.
I walk into the dining room and sit down as candles light up a thicket of white faces that surround me. Across the table, a lady smiles at me and says, "God, I loved your book." It was so real. She talks as everyone else meddles with their slick Mandarin salads and listens. My mind is still outside, uptown on Penniston, and circles the block in search of a place to park. I flip my thick twists out of my eyes, check my teeth for the rearview mirror. I find a spot as a white woman draped in the shadow of a dark mansion across the street has stopped to watch me. Her platinum hair shines white as sin under the streetlights. Her gaze sharp, like an elegant heel pinned into the nape of my neck. I lock the car door, turn to her and smile hello, but she doesn't respond, just stares. As I walk up to the house, fumble with the fence latch, still aware of that stare that followed me to the dining room table, that passed me the coq au vin, that poured another rush of Bourgogne into my glass, that crushed me with polite conversation. My hand shakes slightly as I finally respond. Thank you so much for reading. You are far too kind.
Excellent. Thanks so much. That was Far Too Kind by Skye Jackson to warm us up. And Skye, I'm going to hang up and call you back really quick. I think the connection's a little choppy. So maybe if I call and hang up and call back, it'll be a little better. 1 second. Oops, sorry. Let me call Skye back really quick here. And I also realize I misspelled Burlington on her name card. So let me fix that too. Let's see if that works. Hey, you're back. Let me see. Hi. It looks a little better. Yeah, so I think there was some weird, you never know with the connections and stuff. And now is the time of day that everybody in your neighborhood's watching Netflix. So
True.
so they kind of stuck. So I think we found a better route through. Yeah, but so that was Far Too Kind that you started us out with. And do you want to just explain a little bit how you got into poetry? One of the things you have a law degree, a JD from Mississippi State, I think you said, and
yes.
So how did you, like, what was it that got you from law into poetry?
Oh my gosh. Well, poetry has been a part of my life way longer than law has. I started writing poetry when I was 14 years old at the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. My mom actually enrolled me in the writing program, and at that time I wanted to be a visual artist. So I was like, Mom, what do you mean? I draw, I paint, I want to be and she was like, no, you're a writer, and I've kind of been writing poetry ever since then. It's so interesting, and just kind of learning more about it as I went along. And then when I went to college, I studied creative writing and poetry. And then after that, I was still working on poetry even in law school as well. So it kind of, it follows me everywhere that I go and in everything that I do.
Well, it's such a great thing, like sort of a talent stack for a poet to have. I was thinking that, like, everybody in the world will want to have you on their board of directors because, being a talented poet and, having that kind of expertise. Is it entertainment law that you did?
Well, that was my main interest, entertainment law. I loved doing copyright and trademarks. And actually, that's why I moved to LA, because I was fascinated with that aspect of the law. Right now, I've been working, for a legal nonprofit, trying to help tenants remain in their homes during the COVID-19 crisis and helping them to get access to grant relief. So that's kind of been my current legal framework, is just kind of, jumping into to help people that are really in need during this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you want to read a couple more poems?
Sure, I'd love to. Let's see. Let me pull up my little document here. So this next poem is called Umbrella. Just another day of relentless rain in New Orleans. I looked at the girl standing in front of my register for a long time, gray hoodie drenched. Her dark eyes refused my glance, but somehow the red paper carnation tied around her wrist, dry as a bone. She picked up an umbrella from a basket on the floor and walked slowly to the door. I stopped her as she stood 1 foot beyond the threshold. Are you gonna pay for that? I asked, trembling. She looked up at me, brown eyes endless as the earth, her skin deep brown as my own. She smiled at me through closed mouth and never opened her lips once to speak. She handed me the umbrella, tucked underneath her arm. The flower on her wrist opened slightly in the wind as she walked out into the slaughter of rain.
Excellent. That was Umbrella by Skye Jackson. And the next one I think that you wanted to read, let's see. There was one from the book, so we can show off from A Faster Grave. There were a couple from there, right?
Yes, I'll skip ahead to some of those. One of them is called Blackbird Singing in the Dead. I'll read that one. I've made a few changes to it. So I'll be reading some I'm working on my thesis right now, so everything is moving around.
Yeah, well, I've heard there's stories of, I can't remember who it was, maybe Robert Lowell or somebody who would go around to bookstores and there's some comma that he wanted to add, and he would go around every time he found his book in a bookstore and he would hand write it in. So it's a
that's gonna be
long tradition
literally.
Of that.
I'll just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna cut this out. I'm just gonna add this and put that there. You know, it's like, when do I'm done? That's something that always haunts me. I don't know when it's finished. It's just abandoned. Yeah.
Well, that is a good question. Like how much do you work on a poem? Like how long and is it like what is your process like of writing a poem? Do you sort of do it in one sitting? Do you come back to it over and over and over again? Or do you just tweak it a lot later? How does your writing process work?
It just depends. I'm really inspired by other people and situations and being out in the world. So COVID has really kind of interrupted my process a lot. Like I'm the kind of person who sits on the train or, standing outside of the subway and I'm like, putting a poem into my phone because of something I've heard someone say or something that I've seen, and so of course right now those experiences are kind of like few and far between, but it just kind of depends. Now it's kind of for me like watching movies or listening to music or having a conversation about a political topic or something like that. It's kind of become a little bit more restrained. But in terms of my writing process for poems, it just depends on the poem. Sometimes I'll write something and I'm like, okay, I think it's done. Like, I don't think there's anything else I can do to it. And then there's other poems that I'll keep working on for ages, for like a year or 2 years, I think sometimes for me, if it gets to the point where I'm like, okay, I can't look at this poem anymore, like I just have to put it, I think to me, that's when it's kind of done. But then I might still go back to it, in a few months or something, once that's kind of like worn off.
Yeah, well, Ben Aleshire's here, and he says Galway, and I'm not sure if he means that it's Galway Kinnell that was revising his poems in the books after the fact, but maybe that's who it was that I was thinking of. But let's read this: Blackbird Singing in the Dead, and it's just I want to show off this artwork because it's such a beautiful book, A Faster Grave, and here it is. If everybody can see that the poem is on this page, and then. There's beautiful illustrations.
Thank you so much.
A little gray Schnauzer is the one before. And then we get these just great illustrations. So why don't you read this? Then we'll talk a little bit about the book.
Okay, sounds great. I'll start with Blackbird Singing in the Dead. Last night outside my window, I heard a family of blackbirds crying restless in a paper nest. Then the little boy knocked on my bedroom door. He heard our dead brother moving round the attic again. I wonder, is Los ready for someone to cut him down? Dead brother How dare you sway there just so? Little boy, don't take his hand. Let the rope burn remind you he is no longer of this world. There it goes. There it goes. Again, says the little boy. I swear he's up there. I swear he's calling out my name. I almost answered too, heard him kick out the chair from beneath his own feet. Then the little boy looked at me, his long brown fingers trembling, and said, Dad didn't even know what his favorite song was, Skye. Do you think he knows mine, Skye? Do you think he hears mine, Skye?
It's a powerful poem. Blackbird singing in the dead from A Faster Grave. And so how did the artwork of this book come to be?
So I had just moved. I had actually just moved back to New Orleans from LA, and I heard of a chapbook contest that a local press was facilitating. But the trick was that you had to work with a local artist, and they had to supply you with art or poems. And so literally by the time I found out about this, it was like a week before before the submission was due, and I was just freaking. I'm like, how am I going to get 30 illustrations in 5 days, And so luckily, I knew an artist. His name is Angel Perdomo. Now I can speak his name. But he graciously agreed to last minute render these drawings that you see in the book. And I was able to just throw everything together and submit it in time for the contest. Otherwise, without his drawings, I don't know if it would have happened, because it was short notice. So I'm really thankful to him and for the work that he did. And also the graphic artist who did the layout and the color, Audrey O'Connell. I mean, she just really just hit it out of the park. I was really lucky to be able to work with two artists who really supported my vision and brought it to life in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, well, it definitely did. And do you do art yourself? Somebody asked if that's your painting in the background behind you.
Oh no, this is actually my boyfriend's painting. Well, he didn't paint this, but it is his painting. Uh-huh. I actually used to paint when I was in college, and now I'm trying to get back into painting. Mm-hmm. So my boyfriend bought me all of these art supplies, which I have yet to use. I'm setting up an art station as not to ruin furniture and carpets and stuff like that. But my hope is to kind of get back into painting and drawing because it's something that's, has always been kind of important to me. So yeah, I am dabbling. I'll say I'm dabbling right
now. Is art like what about art? Like what draws you to art? Like what makes you want to create?
Ooh, I love this question. I think it's the same thing that draws me to poetry, which is perspective. I'm always interested in seeing things the way that other people see them. And so I think a painting is so intimate because you step into the shoes of the artist and you get to see the world or their vision as they see it. There's something that's so rich about that and something that deeply intrigues me. And so I always find myself, I wish I could get to a museum, but now everything is just so weird. But I really am inspired by art and just walking around museums and taking notes and it's my favorite thing to do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love art so much, and it has such a profound impact on my work.
Well, let's hear another poem.
Okay. Should I keep reading from A Faster Grave?
Yeah, that'd be good. We can show some more of what's in here.
Okay. I will read The Little Gray Schnauzer because I think that's next.
Okay.
The Little Gray Schnauzer still waits in the empty kitchen. His silver head tilts, impatient, against a wave of fringe on the rug beneath the long-cooled stove, as though he expects, at any moment, that my mother will walk in with a bundle of lemons picked from the tree in the backyard, that she will set her gatherings down and stir brown sugar and cream together to make pralines, or that my father, prompt from the grocery, will hand her the butter she needs, and that my brother will saunter in, beautiful and wordless, the tails of camel coat trailing like attendants behind him, to stick one ringed finger into the mixture, reach down to the floor and give him just one lick. The little gray Schnauzer waits, and I sit down next to him to wait too.
That was a little gray Schnauzer from A Faster Grave. You mentioned living in New Orleans and growing up there, which is just, to me, it seems like that's one of the most amazing cities, although I've never been to it, so I have no actual idea. But a lot of things, like the way this book came together, there's a very New Orleans sort of feel to it. How do you think New Orleans has inspired your art and what you do?
Well, I mean, New Orleans is always a part of me. Like, you can take the girl out of New Orleans, but you can't take the New Orleans out of the girl, you know? So it's ever present in my perspective and how I view the world. And also, I'm just like really very Southern, and I can't escape that. You know, I go to different places and people are like, "Oh, your accent." And I'm like, "I have an accent?" Like, oh my, you know. But New Orleans, you know, so much about New Orleans inspires me. It's a place that has like an endless cultural well that we can all draw from. And so that means from food, that means from art, it's from music, it's just from being outside, being streets and wondering what's going to happen, from, you know, just walking around and feeling the energy of the place. And that's something I think I try to bring to my work, is a sense of place and a sense of kind of being in a moment. And I think that's something about New Orleans that really has always stayed with me. When I'm in New Orleans, I feel very present in whatever situation that I'm in. And it's home, always gonna, you know, feel like that. It's really interesting, I think, to think about. That's a great question.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those people who's never traveled much. I've barely leave my little small town, so the thought of New Orleans, it just sounds amazing, and but I just have no idea. Let me say, if anybody has any questions for Skye, I'm following the chat windows on Facebook and YouTube, so I'll pass along any questions you have to Skye. So feel free to leave them there in either of those two places. Do you want to read another poem?
Sure. Let me pull up my little document again. I don't think I put any more from A Faster Grave in here, although I can grab one of my books and keep reading from it if you want.
Well,
Tim.
One of the things I wanted to ask about was actually the Skye verbs, those little short poems. I think those are so cool. Would you mind reading one or two of those?
No, I don't mind. Hold on.
Okay.
One second.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so while Skye's going to get her book, sorry for everybody who's watching at home and the choppiness. It's just the Skype connection isn't very good today, but I think the audio works fine. So, as always, the Rattlecast is mostly recording a podcast. So as long as the audio is good, I think we're good to go. Anyway, okay, Skye. So what did you want to read for one of these?
Okay, let's see. Oh, there's so many. People really like lessons, so I'll read that. I can read two of them. They're so little.
Yeah. Well, what page is that on? I just want to find it so I can show it for everybody.
Lessons is on page 34.
Okay.
It seems to be one of the more popular poems of the book. Lessons. You call it heartbreak. I call it research. Skye verbs 4:12. It's so funny because I never really tend to read these poems at reads because they're so short. So it's nice to have the opportunity. the next poem I'll read is called Little Moons, and that one is on page 23.
Okay.
Little moons. Today I told that girl with the honey-colored, moon-shaped eyes, always remember, if you love a man, that you must also accept his shadow. Scurbs. 316.
Yeah, so I love these little ones, and there's something like punchy about each one of them, and they're good advice too. So where did you come up with the idea for this? First of all, is that something that you've been writing a lot of, or?
No, I think at the time when I was working on these particular poems, I had just started writing poetry again. I'd stopped for a years, and I was just getting on Instagram and like seeing the Instagram poets, and then I was seeing what Rupi Kaur was doing, and I was like, hey, I could do that, and so I think that's where the little short, because I really don't tend to write, in that style anymore, but I thought that it looks cool, it's short, it's, there's something about it, this kind of haiku-esque, these little poems. And I guess the verbs aspect of it comes from, I grew up in a very, very religious background. And so the Bible was a daily part of my life. And so I was really inspired by biblical language because of the power that people put into it and the energy that people put into it, and Proverbs and Revelations and all of these, these chapters of the Bible, I think or the books rather, I think are so fascinating, and I guess what I was doing was trying to co-opt that, for my own purposes and kind of, I guess, empower as an artist and as a writer by co-opting that religious kind of language or playing with it to some extent.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that made me think of, I was thinking about how we often describe poems as prayers. And but then I also thought that for some reason that we also describe them as magic spells. And I've heard both. I think you mentioned that somewhere that I saw that a poem is like a spell. And what do you think they're more like? Because a prayer and a spell are sort of two different things. They sort of have different trajectories or something. Do you think a poem is more of a prayer or a spell?
I think poems, and I think that spells and prayers are the same because you're asking to get something, so it's both, it's mystical. It's like, if I pray for this, will I get it? If I do this spell, will I get what I want? To me, it's the same. It's kind of the same thing, but I think a prayer is it's like a less paganized way of getting to that, it's so fascinating. I'm so fascinated by that idea, language, everything is so nuanced, but to me it's kind of the same thing, because you're putting that energy, if you pray, if you're a religious person, you're putting an energy into manifesting something, and you do the same thing if you're trying to, make a spell happen. So I don't know. I think they're kind of one and the same. But I'm up to debate that though.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess a spell, maybe a prayer is your trying not to be overt about what you're praying for or something. And, you're trying to appease somebody else instead of doing it directly. I don't know. There's sort of a different intention, it feels to me. I don't know how to articulate it though. But I was thinking about that earlier today as I was looking at the Skye verbs. Do you still consider yourself a believer? Are you still religious?
Yes, I still am. I think when I was younger, I was way more religious than I am now. I'm very spiritual. I pray, all the time. You will go to bed, I'm praying, I'm reading the Bible, and so it's something that's always a part of my life, it's just something that's kind of in my soul. And so I'm interested in the way that human beings make themselves powerful or receive power from higher beings, or try to understand that concept. And I think that comes through in my poetry sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's hear a couple more poems. What do we have next?
Should I keep reading from A Faster Grave?
It's up to you. Whatever you want to share.
Okay, there's one that I really love to read.
Oh, sure, let's.
From Faster Grave.
Okay.
It's on page 54. Mm-hmm. Speaking of religious, the poem is called Look, Skye, Jesus Christ. Look, Skye, Jesus Christ. When did you clock out on 10:09? Oh, God, Bruno, it must have been at least 12:01 a.m. I forgot to punch out again. Stumbled into that Palm Springs pool breathless, my little body heavy from that dark wine. Threw off my bikini top somewhere between margaritas and midnight. Waited bare under that desert moon. Bruno, he stopped calling. So I'm back to question my own existence. I'm back trembling cold under those flaccid stars. What I'm trying to say here is that I'm sorry about my timesheets. Chuck always said, a lady knows when to leave. So I can't help but wonder what the hell that makes me. Look, Skye, Jesus, I just want to fix your timesheets. Tell me when you were supposed to clock out, please.
Excellent. That was Look, Skye, Jesus Christ. A perfect segue into that poem. Thanks.
You must have planned that, Tim.
I think I did, actually. So one of the things that's I noticed too is there's a lot of humor in your poems sort of move around a lot of different spaces within them. And so there's funny parts and then there's serious parts. Is that something that you do intentionally? Like, are you thinking about sort of keeping an audience entertained as you're writing? Or are you thinking about just keeping yourself entertained? Like, where does that moving between different sort of emotions within poems come from? Because that's something that you seem to do a lot really well.
I think, I'm always in the mood to make fun of myself, and some of the poems in this book, this poem was inspired. It was back when I lived in LA and I worked for this estate sale company. And so I'd have to travel all around California, like going through people's closets and like going through their stuff. And there was one, and I was going through a breakup or something crazy. And that night I was like, I'm going to go to the pool at like midnight. And I go to the pool and I'm in the pool and my boss is texting me like, can you just fill out your time sheets? Like, it's midnight, I have payroll. And I'm like, you understand my life, And so it's kind of like just taking those weird, funny moments when life interrupts life and just making a poem out of it. And so, it's something I think I've kind of gotten away from my poetry. My poetry now tends to be a bit more serious. And I'm not really sure why. Maybe I don't know, because the state of the world is just, terrifying or something. I don't know.
Do you think that might be the MFA influence, maybe? Because I noticed, this book came out before you entered, grad school at New Orleans University. Is that where?
At the University of New Orleans.
University of New Orleans, yeah. So this book came out before that. Do you think has that changed your writing? How has it changed your writing, or you think?
That's a great question. The book actually came out when I was in my second semester. I think I submitted the chapbook, and then it was accepted like my second semester of grad school. And so, I think being in grad school has changed my work a lot, because I think I felt like when I was just writing on my own, I wasn't really exposed to what a lot of other poets were doing. And I wasn't really other than, being at the last bookstore and seeing Rupi Kaur's book on the shelf, I'm like, this is what people are reading now, I was so kind of removed from poetry at one point, and so I think the poems in this book feel very contemporary and of a certain moment and style of poetry that was kind of happening at that time. And then, I got into the MFA program and I started reading, Lucille Clifton and Toy Derricott and all of these poets who just kind of awakened my mind. And I started kind of going in another direction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess with the impulses of a faster grave, they're still always inside, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They remain.
Yeah, for sure. Betsy Mars just comments a wonderful reading, Skye. I don't know if you know Betsy, but but you do a great job of reading. What do you think? Is the place for spoken word? Reading poems out loud versus reading on the page.
That's something that I think I've heard a lot of debate about, and I try to think of them working in tandem. So one of my professors at the University of New Orleans Creative Writing Workshop, Dr. Oshandare, he always says to utter is to alter. And so, I think when we're speaking about, as an artist, as a poet, you bring the energy of what you're trying to convey into what you're reading, because that kind of gives it power and it makes it powerful for other people. So I try to bring the same energy that I use to write the poem to read the poem, and so I kind of try to transfer that, to get myself in that frame of mind, so that it feels authentic to the piece and that other people can sense the tone, of what I'm trying to convey as well. So I think they work together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it, is having the same energy as you were writing it. I hadn't really thought of it that way before, of sort of re-inhabiting maybe the space that the poem was created in. I'm going to hang up and call you back one more time, because it's getting a little worse, the choppiness. Let me try one more time to hang up and call you back. Okay. Maybe we'll get a better route through the interwebs. Okay. Just do this again really quick. Sometimes this fixes the problem, and sometimes it doesn't. We'll see. Hey, Skye, let's see. Does this better?
Hey.
Okay, so right now it's better.
Okay, it seems fine over here. I don't know what is happening.
Yeah, it's just some kind of the way the stuff's moving around the internet. It's not getting a lot of bandwidth, but what can you do? But anyway, let's hear a couple more poems. What did you want to read next?
Okay, let me go back to my little folder here. Should I read Spoonrest Mammies now, or should I wonder when I have that in the beginning of this packet.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Go ahead. That's the poem that is a finalist right now for the Rattle Poetry Prize.
Yeah, Tim, I need your advice on how to win that.
Well, I actually, to tell you the truth, I told myself that I shouldn't have anybody as a guest until after the voting, and then I completely forgot and asked both you and Alexis Rotella to be on the show, and then I was like, oh no, so we have to be neutral. At least me. I can't control you, but I have to be neutral and not push the votes in any direction. So I will refrain from answering that. I don't know, but but we'll see. I mean, most people vote right away, so we have the most of the votes in already. So hopefully, you can't influence it too much. That's my hope. That's what I'm telling myself.
All right. Well, we shall see. Let the chips fall where they may. Well, guys, this is my poem, Spoonrest Mammies. I love this poem, and I'm so excited that it was a finalist for the Rattle Prize, and I'll read that to you guys now. Spoonrest Mammies. 1. On Tuesday at work, my manager, a brown Latina married to a black man, approaches me. With a smile, she sets something down in front of me and asks, "What do you think about these?" I look down at a porcelain spoon rest shaped into the swollen figure of a mammy, her lips exaggerated and face dark like the bark of a dead tree. The dress painted Jemima red, with a white apron tied chain taut around her waist. My heart races in its cage. After a second, I say, "We shouldn't sell these." They are offensive. My manager purses her lips, sighs, and says, but they sell, my dear Skye. People buy them. 2. At the end of my shift, a Latina woman with frizzy, bleached blonde hair stands in front of me. She says, I'm from California, just buying these for my kids as a joke. They're going to be so mad, she says. They're going to be so mad I bought these. She hands me 2 of the Mammies spoon rests, says, make sure you wrap them up good. I'd hate for them to break on the flight back home. So I protect them in paper and bubble wrap, carefully place each one in a plastic bag. You know, the lady says, your store shouldn't sell these. I hand her the bag, smile and say, but they sell. 3. 3 weeks later, my manager hands me a cardboard box. I open it to all the spoon rest Mammies gathered together. They smile up at me from the guts of the box. My manager says, I tried to donate them to Goodwill, but the guy accepting donations said, I won't sell these, but if you want, I can throw them in the dumpster out back. I'd be happy to do that.
That was Spoon Rest Mammies, which is appears in Rattle number 70, and people can vote, although I will not influence and not encourage anybody to vote for that poem. But anybody who subscribes to Rattle, there are 10 finalists, and you can choose any of the finalists you choose. But I love the nuance of that poem, and it also, the exact same thing happened in our not in our town, but like down below in the desert. There's like a Route 66 kind of like rest stop, and they had this whole display of those kind of, you know, black-faced mammy type figurines and things. And it was the strangest thing, because it started to be a thing, like call and complain so they get rid of them. And the owner just said like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And I was just thinking like, you know, is it possible to have no idea? Or, you know, and so the nuances just come out in this poem so well. I assume like your poems, you're a poet who it feels like you're storytelling true stories. So I'm assuming these are all based on true stories, but, yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a very nuanced and excellent poem. I loved it.
Thank you. I mean, the poem is based on a true story. It's, you know, when I'm still in grad school, but I think it was last year. It was before the pandemic, pre-pandemic life. I was working part-time in a shop in the French Quarter. And, you know, that's kind of what inspired this poem. You know, I'm a Black woman, you know, working in a predominantly Black city and selling these items that are just relics from the antebellum past. But, you know, those elements of the past are still with us, you know, and like you said, it's so subtle. I don't think it's subtle, but other people really notice the impact of, you know, of those items, you know, and how they make other people feel. So I think it's quite, you know, it's quite fascinating to think about and break down all of those layers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that line. But they do sell, or I think is what you said. You know, when the speaker tells the person who bought them. Yeah, I hand her the bag, smile, and say, "But they sell," and they do. You know, is the thing.
No, they do, and that was a conversation I had with my manager at the time. You know, she was like, "I would like to get rid of these, but I sell a lot of them." Mm-hmm. You know, what do we do? And I'm just like, I don't know, but this is wrong. Because, you know, it's just like, this is wrong. We shouldn't be selling these. But, you know, it's a business that wants to make money. So, yeah, it's very messed up. But so that poem is kind of like a condemnation of, you know, what capitalism forces us to do sometimes in order to survive, you know, and the position that sometimes it places other people in, you know, to participate in order to survive.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I see on In the chat, don't worry, Ben is lobbying and bribing people for your votes right now.
Thanks, Ben. I love you.
Well, let's hear. What do you want to read next? We have 15 or so minutes, so whatever you want to, whatever you want to go to next. I know it's so fun. Time flies. But.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, what should I read next? Maybe I'll read I'll read Can We Touch Your Hair? That's another one that will be coming out in a future issue of Rattle.
So honestly, I couldn't remember if it was Umbrella or if it was that one. Because I like them both. I think did you submit Umbrella to the Rattle Poetry Prize maybe too?
I
remember reading it and discussing it at a meeting. So I couldn't remember which one we were publishing. I meant to look it up before, but I really like that one too.
Oh, thank you. Is it still? I don't even. It might still be. I think it's still available if you want it, but just let me know. But yeah, those poems, Spoon Rest Mammies, Far Too Kind, and Umbrella, they're all like kind of a set. Mm-hmm. So I do remember submitting them all together.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's see. The next poem I'm gonna read. It's called "Can We Touch Your Hair?" At the parades, everyone wants to touch my hair. On the corner of St. Charles and Marengo, I am cold and smashed and puffy AF. When two white women try to convince me that they love my hair, no, they really, really do, they say, because it is so black and thick and curly and soaking up all of the water in the damp air. The mousy one says, through an Alabama drawl, God, you can do so much with it. And her blonde friend says, you can't do a damn thing with mine, won't even hold a curl. She runs away to grab another friend and says to her, Stacy, isn't it even prettier than Macy Gray's? We just love her, don't we? They circle me and ask, can we touch your hair? Then suddenly, just like my ancestors long ago, I am pulled apart soft by pale hands from all directions.
Yeah, another excellent poem, Can I Touch Your Hair? And that's going to be in Rattle number 71 this spring. Let me see if we have any questions. I don't want to leave the audience out. Let me scroll through. I haven't been doing a good job of that.
Oops.
Let me see. Well, one of the things I want to ask, I think, speaking of Ben being here, didn't you do? He was the first guest on the Rattlecast, and didn't both of you do? Like he does the typewriter, whatever you call it, where you go and write poems for people.
Yes, the typewriter poetry.
You did that too, right? I think I remember you went to Paris and you did that in Paris. Is that true?
Yes. So Ben trained me. I learned from the best. And so I think I tried to start doing it when I was in Berlin, but I don't think I had the gumption yet. I had just gotten the typewriter. Like, I don't know. And then I went to Paris and Ben kind of trained me about how to do it. And yeah, and so we would go to Shakespeare and Company, which is, this beautiful little bookshop in Paris. And Ben and I would kind of take shifts. Mm-hmm. So one day he might go or I would go, or we'd go at the same day, but I might go into the bookstore and just read for hours, and I got to kind of, see how people immediately react to poems, which is not something that poets really get to do. We don't know how other people are reading our poems or what they immediately think of them. So to have that process happen in real time, to have to create, then give, and then, see the reaction was something that, I still think about it when I'm writing poems now,
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask about. Is it's seeing the reaction of people right when they read the poem that you just wrote. What did you learn from that process about writing in your poems that you're publishing in your own books and things? Is there something that you took away from that experience?
Yeah, I think sometimes we tend to think that people are different, and from traveling all over the place, it kind of shows me that people are the same, like we have the same drives and the same pain and the same motivations and the same, desires. And so when someone comes up to you and they're like, I want a poem about my best friend moving away, it's like, oh my gosh, I remember when my best friend moved away. But, these are things you don't think about every day, Or I remember there was one time a guy came up to me. It was a father and a daughter. And he said, my daughter just graduated from high school and I wanted to take her on this nice trip to Paris and I'm going to miss her. And I don't know how I'm going to survive with her not, being around. And so I wrote him a poem and he like cried and she cried. And I was just like, whoa, I didn't know that like I could do that to other people, so it was very surreal, but there's something really humbling about it. Like to get to experience that moment and to get to experience, other people sharing such intimate aspects of their lives with you, and trusting that to you for you to create something with. So
Yeah. That's just so interesting. I don't know. I don't feel like I couldn't do it. I don't know how you and Ben and the other people who do that do it. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Do you end up with poems that you use elsewhere, or is it all just you write it and then it goes away?
Sometimes it depends. One of my favorite ones that I wrote was about this gentleman came up to me in Paris and he said he wanted a poem about fear. And I said, okay, what are you scared of? And he was like, oh, no, not my fear. I want a poem about your fear. And I was like, whoa, you're really putting me on the spot,
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite poems I've ever written. And I don't think I've ever tried to do anything with it, but it's just, it sticks with me because I had to really dig deep inside of myself to think about what was, So yeah, sometimes it's, it's for other people. It's for me, it's kind of just a challenge. Like, okay, can I do this? Can I write a poem about this thing? But it just kind of depends,
It didn't occur to me, but Caitlin Buxbaum asked that. Do you and Ben speak French? Being in New Orleans and then going to Paris for this, was it all in English or was it in French?
I do not speak any languages. I wish I did. It's like I feel terrible but only speaking English. Ben speaks Spanish and he speaks a little in all languages like Italian. Sometimes I know he writes poems that have French in them, and I'm trying to think. I think he has written whole poems for people in French, but not without great anxiety about it. But still brilliant.
Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about is your style choice. You do, I think for all your poems, you don't capitalize any letters. And there's sort of a straightforward, sort of simple style that goes through it. Is there a reason for that? Like, why do you make that choice?
Well, I'm kind of inspired by a certain group of poets, like Lucille Clifton. That's kind of how everything was uniform. There's not a lot of punctuation. There's not a lot of capitalization. I love that style. I love the way it looks on a page. Like sometimes capitalized letters just visually, I'm like, I don't know if I want that, but, I read, Lucille Clifton or Toy Derricott and the way that they kind of equalize punctuation or eliminate it. And, and the way, and it kind of forces you to see how you can convey something without punctuation or without, it's like, oh, can I communicate that this is where a stop is without actually putting a period, and it's really kind of challenge. It looks simple, but it's challenging to do because if you do it wrong, people think it's just like one long continuous sentence,
Yeah.
But if you do it the right way, then it's like, oh, okay, there's a pause here, great, and so I don't know, it's kind of like a challenge to myself to write that way, and also just being inspired by other poets.
That mentioning Lucille and Toy Derricott reminded me of a question earlier. Somebody asked who your favorite poets are. Who are your favorite poets?
Well, of course, Lucille Clifton, Toy Derricott. I mean, Toy Derricott just kind of, I came to her work when I was in grad school, and it just like blew my whole world just totally open. I was like, oh my gosh, she's writing the kind of poems I want to write, you know? And as a poet, when you find someone like that, it's just like the most exciting thing, you know, that you can experience, because you're like, I'm not alone in this crazy world, you know, I'm not just making things up, you know? And so she's such an inspiration. And fun fact, I workshopped Spoon Rest Mammies in her workshop. And she gave me the idea of making that the title, because it wasn't always Spoon Rest Mammies. So she played a huge part in this poem. And I'm so grateful to her for that. Another favorite poet of mine is Michael Brown. Everything is just he's just so amazing. It inspires me so much. Ben and I have a picture of him like in our living room. We're just like, yes, like when I'm working on poems, I'm like, I can do this, Jericho, you know, like, but he's just such to me personally. I love his work so much. And he's such a generous, kind person. And I just aspire to be like him in so many ways, like on the page and off of the page.
Yeah, and mentioning Toy Derricott, that actually I think is Alan's favorite interview. He says it all the time. I never got to meet her. He went to, I think she lives in Philadelphia, and I can't remember where. Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh. That's right. And and it's in issue number 31 if anybody wants to have some insight. But she was just so open and just a wonderful person. So many great stories and just such a heart on her sleeve type personality. It's a great interview to read.
I have to read. I love her so much. She's so amazing. Just the wisdom that exists within her is just too precious for this world.
Yeah,
literally.
She definitely is. I wish I'd gotten to meet her, but I didn't fly out on that trip. But oh well. Well, there's just a little bit of time left. Do you want to read maybe 2 more poems if you want to finish it off? I think. Let's see.
Yeah.
What did you have left that you wanted to read?
Let me see what I have left in my little packet here. I'll read 2 more poems. The first one is a kind of recent poem that I wrote, and it's called The Boys with Dead Mothers Get Better with Time. The boys with dead mothers get better with time. The white boy in law school eluded me. Like a flash of light and mercury, hid me away in study rooms, or his parents' Mississippi mansion, like a letter supposed to be read. Or when I asked him about the book in his car, The Goldfinch, after we spent the night together, he told me it was about a boy in a painting, not a boy and his dead mother. How years later, it would all make sense. In L.A., the boy with the dead mother begged to leave him the first night we met. Over Louis Armstrong and wine, he kissed me and just said, stay. In New Orleans, the boy with the dead mother tells me that he missed his mother's gravy at my parents' house this past Thanksgiving. He asked me if we can roast a chicken to replicate the thickness of the sauce, the way she smeared seasoning all over the chicken, the way he and his father fought over the bacon she laid tender over the breasts like blanket. Why do I love boys whose mothers are dead? What am I hoping that they see in me? What am I hoping that they don't?
Excellent. And that was The Boys with Dead Mothers Get Better with Time. Before you read the last one, let me just ask one last thing. I assume these are from the manuscript you mentioned working on for your thesis for the MFA that you're doing.
Yes.
What is that book called, and what are the themes of it?
Tim, that's, these are things I'm working on. The name is in flux. I'm trying to get that down. Right now I'm calling it I Must Tell You, but that's probably going to change. I'm only in my first draft of it right now. I'm thinking of calling it Dear Editors, because there's a poem that I wrote this past summer, kind of in response to a Facebook post that another poet, Raymond Antrobus, made about, because of the Black Lives Matter movement and because of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, a lot of editors were approaching Black writers and asking them like, oh my gosh, what's your perspective on this? Can you give us something on this? Can you give us something on that? We want to like do this and that, and his perspective was that, he was like asking Black artists to relive trauma just for the sake of publishing something, in this moment is just not productive. I was really inspired by that. I was just like, whoa. And so I wrote this poem called Dear Editors that addresses, kind of addresses his address. And so I'm thinking of calling it Dear Editors, but I'm not sure yet. The tone of the piece is really inspired by that, by the Black Lives Matters movement. It's inspired by, police brutality, violence, against Black bodies. It's inspired by family, by change. It kind of takes some of the themes that are lightly touched on in A Faster Grave and expands upon them. And so those are, some of the themes that are kind of, being played with that manuscript right now. But it's, like I said, it's still in flux, so it may change some more.
Well, I'll just say I like that, Dear Editors. I think that'd make a good title. I could see it for sure. Okay.
I'll try to submit that to my thesis advisor, and hopefully she'll agree with you.
Okay, so what do you want to finish up with?
Let's see. Okay. I'm gonna read a poem I haven't read in a long time. It's called #Medusa was black, y'all. Perseus, hold my dead lips up close to your ear. Let me tell you a secret with split tongues. Once, long ago, Poseidon held a fistful of my black locks, just like this. On the floor of the temple, fingers pulling at my scalp, he inhaled me, my body soft from lavender and holy oil. My robes, cast off and torn, spilled down over the altar, and the candles dimmed in respect of my shame. My brown skin somehow paled in the fading light. The last thing I remember, before the snakes came, before my body was lost, both to the sea and to knowledge, a reflection of myself in the eyes of that cruel God, the imprint of his hands hot and red as the sea on my neck, the chill of them first touching my face. The press and dead fish stink at salty mouth, lips rough and cold as the jagged rocks of the deep against my collarbone. Picture a girl built pretty open, like a temple, only to be destroyed. Be kind. You are looking at ruins further ruined. What I mean to say is that the swift kiss of your sword on my neck is not unfamiliar, Perseus. I have tasted the sharp, quick pain of a man before.
Excellent poem. And that was #Medusa was black, y'all.
Yes.
Yeah, by Skye Jackson. Thanks so much for being a guest today, Skye. And good luck with your thesis coming up.
I need it.
I don't think you do. I do not think you do. I think this is going to be a great book that's going to be published sometime in the not too distant future, let alone winning your master's degree. So good luck with that, though. And thanks for being a guest. It's wonderful talking to you always. Just such a fun person to be around.
Oh, thanks, Tim. I really appreciate that.
Let me ask before you go. I only listed the book's URL in the show notes. Do you have social media that you use? I know you're on Facebook because we're Facebook friends. Do you use other social media that people can find you at, or?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. My handle is @Skye in the City, SKYE in the City.
Yeah. Okay, I remember that now, but I don't use Instagram much. So.
And my website is www.skyejackson.com. I'm new to Twitter, but my my Twitter handle is the same as my Instagram at Skye in the City. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'll add the website into the show notes. It didn't come up when I looked for it, but I'll add that to the show notes for everybody who can click through really quick. But thanks again, Skye. It's always great seeing you.
Thank you for everything, Tamara. I really loved being here and with all of you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Skye. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, yeah, and that was Skye Jackson with her newest book. I'll put it on the screen one last time. This is from Antenna. Oops, let me move that down too. It's from Antenna Press, A Faster Grave, and you can find that book at antenna.works is the website. Antenna right there. And you can find Skye Jackson, I guess, at skyejackson.com, which is Skye, S-K-Y-E, Jackson.com. So find Skye there. I'll put that in the show notes too. Now, we're going to move on to the open mic portion of the show. And how to participate in that is, the numbers are on screen right now. So if you have a poem, we have a prompt every week. And the prompt this week was to write a poem entitled Astronaut without using any kind of space words. So if you did that, feel free to share that poem. But you don't have to. It's a totally open mic. And we're going to take a meet with Bill McConnell, too, from Whole Life Soaps, yeah. And talk about the Soap Coup winner that he chose this year, which we published on Saturday. So we'll get a little talk with Bill McConnell, too, in this open mic section. But if you'd like to share a poem of any kind, either for the prompt, The Astronauts, or for any kind of poem you'd like to share, just email it to openmic@rattle.com, all one word. And after you do that way I can show it on screen as you read. Then call in 818-850-7727, like right now or anytime. Let it ring a few times, and I'll just call you back within the next hour if... and I go in the order that people call in, and I'll make sure I get to first-time callers first. If you'd like to be on video, that's even better. And just send me a chat message over Skype to Rattle Poetry, all one word. That's Rattle Poetry. Over Skype, just send me a chat message and the same thing. I will call you back. Two things to know, that there's a delay, about 30 seconds, so it gets confusing. So make sure you shut off your stream when I call you. And you have to have the poem with you to read yourself, because you can't read it from the stream because it won't be at the same time as you are reading it. So that's all the instructions. We'll see you in just a minute. I'm going to take a little break to just stretch my feet and stand up so I'm not sitting here for 2 hours straight. And let me tell you in the meantime that next week's guest is going to be Marjorie Lotfi. Her newest book is Refuge, and she also is the founder of something called Open Door Books, which does a lot of poetry workshops in the community around Edinburgh, Scotland. And we donate books to that all the time. It's a wonderful program. We'll talk a lot about that. We'll talk about her two books. She has two, they call them pamphlets in the UK, Refuge and her older one. But note the time, Tuesday, January 5th, it's 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time. It's 6 hours ahead of the normal time because Marjorie's in the UK and there's a time difference, and we don't want to have her do it at 2 a.m. So we'll be seeing Marjorie on Tuesday, January 5th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 hours ahead of time. So I'm going to just stretch my legs for a minute, get a couple things set up, and I will be right back for the open lines. Okay, see you in a minute. And we're back. Thanks everybody for your patience and letting me stand up and I tend to sit with my foot underneath my leg and it falls asleep every episode. So having a little break allows me to do that. Also allows me to get some stuff set up. Now, as I mentioned, the prompt for this week was Astronaut, or write a poem entitled Astronaut. Let me pull this up. Here was the official prompt. I'll read the whole actual thing as it actually goes. It was, write a poem titled Astronaut, avoid using the words space, spaceship, stars, moon, rocket, or planet. So that was this week's prompt. If you have one, please do send in your poem now, and I'll read it online on the air if you call in, or I can read it if you can't make it yourself. So email it to open mic, all one word, at rattle.com. That's open M-I-C. And we have a whole bunch of poems lined up, so we should be really good to go. This should be a great open mic. I'm looking forward to it. Let's look at what we did. This is my poem, and this is the Astronauts. And this is a true story. We had a big snowstorm last night, and that inspired this poem here, The Astronauts. Here you go. The Astronauts. Late nights after heavy snow, I walk the impassable streets with the dog off leash. Nothing moves on the mountain. Even the plow must be stuck down below. No wind once the cold front's passed. No sound but the dogs bounding through the distant banks of a blue-white river that had once been the road. He's sniffing for a place to pee. But every scent is buried too under a foot of frozen powder, and he's floating through a blank page of his universe, nothing written but the stars of our eyes and the moon. And that is my poem, The Astronauts, and this is a photograph of our town. This was actually what inspired. This was me walking last night. This isn't a photograph I took. This is Victor, our mechanic, posted this on social media, but I figured I'd put it up anyway. This was taken at 1 a.m. last night with no flash. That's how bright the moonlit snow was last night in our town. And then here's Megan's poem for the prompt. We have The Astronaut by Megan. Catastrophizing, the therapist says, the S and PH hissing like an oxygen tank. I can't hear, soaring as I am, helmetless, past the blue-crusted atmosphere, into the breathless black drear, where what-ifs glitter like the dust of bigger things, things I could touch if not for this gear. The bulk and heft of being human, my suit, I watch these cosmic crumbs become clear beneath my telescope, teem with a kind of life that can make whole ecosystems disappear. The therapist's clipboard is a lasso, but even with a good aim, I'm 100 miles away from here. How silly sanity looks from a distance, a child playing pretend. How small it can appear. How easy to believe in what falls upward. How limitless the pull of fear. That was Megan's poem, The Astronaut. And as always, hers is better than mine. I think, in my honest expert opinion, I beat her 1 month, or one week out of the 50 or so we've been doing a prompt poem. And this was not one of those weeks. But let's see, let's go to the open lines. And there's a whole bunch of people here, which is always fun. So I'm accepting some requests from new folks. And let us call first. I'm just going to go in the order of that they were received, but from new people. So here, first we have a 941 number. So I will call up 941 first, and we'll see who that is. And the phone's ringing now.
Hello.
Hey, this is Tim with Rattle. Did you want to share a poem for the open mic?
Yes, I might.
Yeah, you are on the air right now, but you can take a second to pull it up. We're in no rush.
Oh. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, as you do. Who am I talking to, and where are you calling from?
My name is Nikki Ummel, and I am currently a student in the creative writing workshop at the University of New Orleans.
Ah, excellent. And did you send the poem over to us?
I did.
Okay, let me try to find it as you try to find it.
Yeah, it is called I'd Stopped By to Say. So It should be in the subject of the email.
Okay, let me try to find it. Here we go. Okay. I stopped by to say, I have it whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. All right, I stopped by to say, take me where the earth runs red, and lay me beneath a slender pine tree, one bereft of branches. Mix milk in the copper clay, paint me head to toe, geometric equations that explain how I lost you. Promise me you'll pluck my teeth and wear them on a string that slides between your breasts while you smash the china I left at your house accidentally. Finger the sandpaper edge of my tongue while you arc back as she makes you come. Kiss me with her clit on your lips so I can taste what I am missing. Your eyes, scalpel black, slice the grainy pane of her back window. I lick my thumb to trace the imprint of your palm, sweat sweet, but you turn away, draw the shades dark. Tell me again how we used to laugh, throat deep after midnight, too drunk to sleep, too awake to think this would last. Tell me what it felt like when we slept in the desert during that freak rainstorm, corner-stacked our bags and played King of the Hill as the lightning struck, the sky a punctured bruise.
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing that. That was Nikki Ummel with the poem I Stopped By to Say. Thanks for sharing that and calling in, Nikki.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, let me, really quick, we're going to go to Bill McConnell in just a second. Let me call up somebody who, let's see, trying to see somebody who has a short from the prompt poem really quick. Let's see. Let me see what, let me see. Let's call up Brent Stoffer really quick. We could do a quick with Brent. Hey, Brent, how you doing tonight? Oh, it takes a second for Brett's connection to come.
Just have to. Yeah,
there you go.
Just have to get the everything worked out.
The electrons have to be
I'm
flowing.
doing great.
Yeah. So you have a prompt poem for us, Astronaut. Anything you want to say about it?
Yes, I do. Well, it's supposed to be about the flow state. The flow state.
Okay.
That like rock climbers and get into and jazz musicians or just musicians in general. And sometimes when you're writing, it's that thing where you well, I don't know. And I did it. That's a terrible job of describing it.
No
Hopefully the poem is a little bit better at it.
So okay. Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
All right, Astronaut. Sailing on the invisible wave of some furious solar flare, I pass over Jupiter's great storm. I lean into the trembling body of my upright double bass as the Resurrection Symphony begins to stir. From Mahler's mind and pen, the notes flow into our hands. I pluck a rock from Saturn's rings and tuck it into a tuxedo pocket, picking up speed beyond the familiar. The bow's black camel hair tugs the gut of the strings into proud, brisk song. Each of us bass players disappear into the unfolding opening music. Goodbye, little Earth.
Excellent. The Astronaut. Thanks for. Do you play the bass?
Yeah, I do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so it was a nice dovetailing of interests there.
Well, that's perfect. Well, thanks for sharing that tonight, Brent.
All right, thanks a lot, Tim. Great show, by the way.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah,
that was Brent Stoffer with Astronaut, his prompt poem. Let me go to now. We're going to go to Bill McConnell. Here we go. Here we go. Let's call it Bill. And now, so every year I'll just explain this a little bit. for the Wrightwood Literary Festival. Well, actually, Bill's coming in quick, so he's coming in hot. Let's see. Hey,
coming
Bill. How you doing? I was about to explain what this was and why you're on here, but then you popped up so quick. I guess it's because you're only like 2 streets over or something.
Yeah, probably so.
But
good connection.
yeah, so just so everybody knows, every year for the last, I think, 5 years, is this the 5th year of it? For the Wrightwood Literary Festival, usually we have this whole life soap haiku contest, which was the brainchild of Bill McConnell here. As part of the literary festival. So originally people had to be at the festival, and they would write a haiku and put it in a little fishbowl, and then we'd take it over to Bill, and he would pick one. And then the winner ends up printed on a bar of soap for sale next year at Whole Life Soaps here in Wrightwood. And then like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you opened it up to everybody in the world, and now you get entries from all over the place. Can you just explain a little bit what inspired this contest and the idea of printing a haiku into a bar of soap? It's the coolest contest I'm familiar with, so I want to promote it every year.
Well, I've always been a big proponent of the arts, and can you hear me okay?
You're good. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I've always been a big proponent of the arts, and when the literary festival started coming around, I was just really curious how I could get involved. And I thought it would be just really neat to have something that could fit on the size of a bar soap, something that's about 3 by 4 inches, and just allow people to have like a little takeaway or a keepsake that has their words and their artistic expression on it. And so I thought, why not a haiku? A haiku, anywhere from 2 to 4 lines, captures that image. It fit nicely, and it just was something that kind of took off. I think another resident up here, Joan McCandless, she was really kind of important in pushing it through, and and it's just kind of a cool opportunity for local writers or even writers who aren't local now to just throw their words into the hat, so to speak.
Yeah. So the deadline, I think the deadline was September 31st this year. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Yeah, we do it every September, so just the entire month of September.
Yeah,
so,
and you just email it to Whole Life. Go to wholelifesoaps.com for more information and all this stuff too. But Joan McCandless, who you mentioned, leads a haiku hike along with Deborah Kalaji, who we published in Rattle, a haiku poet. And that was sort of that was where a lot of the early ones came from, was those haiku hikes that Joan did with Debbie Kalaji. One thing I've always wondered, and I never asked you, is what do the customers think of having poetry on their soap? Do they get a kick out of it, or are they just confused, or how does that work?
No, they always ask, what is this for? And so I always tell them about the contest, because I'm like, it's free to enter. You can enter. I tell anybody that, but they think it's a pretty neat thing. When they look at it, they go, hey, this is like a real. They're like, this really expresses like a really cool feeling, or they love, like a couple of years ago, we had one that was about cherry blossoms. That was one of the winners. And they just like the imagery that goes with it. And they said, this really matches the soap well, so it's kind of, for them, it's kind of a cool thing. Not everybody catches on to it, but there are a lot of people who do appreciate it, so. Yeah,
and it's cool that the as you use it, the haiku sort of fades away, like one of those Zen boards or whatever they call them, where the art fades. There's something sort of, I don't know, like it ephemeral about it too. That's really neat. It's a good combination. Yeah. Do you want to share a few of your favorites that were submitted this year?
Sure. Let me get to my page here.
Yeah, and I have this is wholelifesoaps.com, and if you go to Rattle's website, you can find the links to this specific page, or at the top of Whole Life Soaps, go to the soap blog, and it's up there at the top. So,
okay, all right. I will. Like when I read these, I'm attracted to language, and so that's a lot of what I look for in the winners, is how interesting they are with language, and how well they pay attention to the theme.
Oh, and everybody should know too that you're an English teacher as well as being a soap artisan.
Yeah. I have been for this is year 25. Yeah, so it's good times. So, all right, I'll read you number 5 from Sophia Sterone, or Steroni. I'm not sure how she pronounces that. I apologize if I didn't get it right. But a nebula looms, helices of stardust stray, morphing into men. And when I read that and I thought about transformation, I thought that's just. It latches onto my anthropological roots, and so that one really rang to me. Another one, and I agonized over this one. This one was almost the winner. This is number 2. It's by S. Heine. The tree in winter holding a delicate yolk between chopsticks. And I just thought, how perfect, the 2 branches without leaves capturing the sun. That was just such a beautiful image to me. So that one almost won it.
Yeah, I love that one too. Those are the 2 that I would have struggled. It reminds me, looking at how you did this, it reminds me of me doing the Poets Respond news poems every week. There's always like a few that I just love, and then I have to figure out, which one of the few wins, but there's a whole bunch of good ones.
Yeah. Let me read you the winner. This was Christina Tang Bernas, and it says, "Matter is never lost. I eat the fruit of the tree you are buried beneath." And it's a simple image, but it really captured that transformation and nature theme, which is what we were writing about this year. And so that to me was the winner, and it really spoke to me, and I thought she did a great job. So,
For people who want to enter next year, what are you looking for, and do you have any advice for people submitting haiku?
Well, yeah, I do. I read a couple of books about haiku, or even if you don't want to read a book, read some haiku and see how the pause and the turn work. There's a trick to a haiku, and each line has to present an idea or a contrasting image. And, and usually that third line is a commentary on the entire thing. It's kind of like, when you think about writing sonnets and how there's the twists and the turns between the different quatrains and things like that. But haiku, because it's a limited space, every line matters, every word matters. And so I would suggest reading haiku. I would suggest going out into nature and just observing the natural world and writing about that in haiku form. Play with adjectives, get rid of ordinary language. Those are things I would suggest, and just look for something that's interesting and be a good describer of it. That's what I would suggest. So.
Yeah, great advice. And we'll definitely be doing it again next year, hopefully with a literary festival to go along with it. It was canceled for COVID this year, but maybe there'll be enough vaccinations and things that we'll be able to have it in person. I don't know. We'll see.
I hope so, but regardless, this contest is going to go on, and regardless of whether the festival has to be postponed another year, we'll still have it. And there's always that little cash prize to the winner too, and that's always just a little nice bonus as well. So, and I'd like to thank Rattle this year for partnering with us and helping to make that happen. So that was very kind of you to do that.
And, always my pleasure, Bill, and thanks for being on today and sharing that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too.
So it was Bill McConnell from Whole Life Soaps. Here's the screen view again. This is the Whole Life Soaps website. And you can find all 20. Bill listed his favorite 20 of the 612 he received this year from all over the world. And you can find it there at wholelifesoaps.com. So thanks to Bill for joining us today. And I probably picked the wrong week to do this because there's so many people on the open lines. But Bill just finished up the soap for this year, so I wanted to share it with everybody. But let's get to some of these new callers. This is Eva Zimet. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Let's call up Eva.
Probably picked the wrong.
Hey, this is Tim with Rattle, and I hear myself in the background. Can you mute that video stream, and I'll unmute you again there. Okay. Can you mute? I still hear that in the background. Can you mute that? Oh, there it goes. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Excellent. And that's Zimet, Eva Zimet. Thanks so much for
Zimet.
Zimet. Oh, okay. Eva Zimet. So you have an astronaut poem.
Hang on.
I still hear myself. I'll just mute you again while you figure. Yeah, so there's the Skype, and then just shut off any other window besides for Skype.
Did I mute the right one?
That's good. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So it was a prompt poem for you too. And this is Astronaut. Is there anything you want to say about it before you share?
Not really. It was a tangent. Mm-hmm. I took kind of a tangent off of the idea of astronaut. So
excellent. Well, I think it's a prompt where you sort of have to take a tangent. So I'm looking forward to hearing what it was. Let's hear it whenever you're ready.
Okay. Astronaut. Yes, thanks. I would like that. I would like to be described as a singularity, an undefined point that ceases to be well behaved mathematically. As a singularity, I share area, but meander and frolic and flirt on the horizon of events. Who are you to say I don't? You can't see me anyway, although by all accounts, I am not undetectable, just unruly and very, very powerful. Approach me, will you? Know me, will you? I trust you to believe that, to thrive on curiosity, as you say, but what you do is list properties, call them yours, and sign your name.
Excellent. That was Eva Zimet with Astronaut. Thanks so much for calling in and sharing that, Eva. Glad to have you on our call list.
Great. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Good night. Okay. Yeah, that was Eva Zimet. Let me, there's so many people on the list. Let's see. I'm trying to go in the order of, they were received among the new people who haven't called in yet. So let me, we have a 919 number. Let's try 919 and see who that is. So the phone's ringing now. Just waiting for 919 to pick up. Well, we'll try 919 again in just a little bit. Let's go to, instead, we will do 917. See who 917 is. So the phone's ringing. Hopefully I have that part on mute so nobody has to hear it. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Well, that's weird. 917 isn't answering either. I don't know what the odds are of both, of neither of those picking up at the same time. Let's see. I wonder if, let's see. Ben Aleshire sent a poem in. Speculative Pac-Man Nocturne. I'd love to hear that. Let me see if I can. I wonder if Ben is on Skype right now. Or, let's see. We'll see. And maybe one of those phone numbers was Ben. But we'll see if the Skype picks up. I don't think he is. So maybe one of those numbers was Ben. Yeah, Ben's not online. Okay, well, let's do Claire Walsh. We'll get to somebody, don't worry. I think my Skype's working. Claire Walsh. I know I saw that on the submission list. Yeah, or Welsh. Claire Welsh, sorry. Hey, Claire, I make sure you mute the video stream and I'll pull you in. Hey, Claire, good to see you. Oh, I think you might be on mute.
Oh, hi.
Oh, there you are. Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah. So where are you calling from, Claire? I think this is the first time you've been on the open mic, right?
Right. So I am calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Uh-huh.
And I went to school with Skye, and I'm friends with Ben, and they were like, check this thing out. And I was like, okay, I will. So it's been great so far.
Awesome. Great. Well, it's so fun to have friends of the, featured poet to be sort of joined together with the episode too. So I'm so glad you could call in. What do you have to share for us? This is what they mean. What they mean when they say princess. Is there anything you want to say about it before you share?
So I didn't know that there was a prompt, so I just sort of set
there's a prompt for like the regulars who want a prompt every week, but then we have an open mic, so you can share whatever you want. So this is perfect.
Right. So I think I'll just go right into it.
Okay, cool. I'll put it on screen for everybody. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Great. What they mean when they say princess. Someone has to die before I kiss your hand, and it won't be me. So I waited, sucked sea salt caramel, and listened to every Diana conspiracy. The flashing light, the white Fiat, the photographer and his suicide, only to conclude beauty does not save us from humiliation, only inflates the price per each bulimic tooth, belly curve, and blood trickle sprung from our crowns, our dead hair. You are a child. To say this justifies abuse implies children deserve abuse. I imagine your lips as silent mirrors. They confuse projection with imagination. In Aztec lore, the black mirror reflects not only the viewer, but the object, a phone screen turned off and suggesting another endless face. I am insulting your boundaries by calling them feminine. In the end, the castle is beautiful. The barbican, like a closed mouth, beautiful. The alligator spine splitting, the moat's reflection, beautiful. The berm, battlements, and batter, beautiful. The batter braced for battering, you see, all beauty is functional. Comically, you are working class and too tired to clean the dishes. I have always looked out the window and wished life were different. If I forget to shave, someone will notice. If I forget to laugh, little myself, a plate will break. The mice in the house know what mice know. How to slide along walls, collect crumbs, keep out of sight. They watch me open a weave of ramen noodles. They watch me when I cannot watch myself. I have never been seen like this, so large I block out the sun. I pray I never possess the power of a god or a man, that all myths vanish to bright distance.
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing that. I love that line, imagine your lips as silent mirrors. That was what they mean when they say princess. Thanks so much for sharing that. Excellent poem.
Thank you.
I hope you call again soon sometime.
Yes, indeed. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks. And that was Claire Welsh with what they mean when they say princess. Let me call up. Let's see who should be next. Let me try this 504 number. We'll see. And so if anybody, people, I'm calling from the 818-850-7727. So if you get a phone call from that number, that's who it is. Let's see who we have here. Hey, this is Tim with Rattle. Did you want to share a poem?
Hey, Tim. How you doing?
Great. Who am I talking to?
This is Ben.
Excellent, Ben. So glad we could hook up. What do you have for us? I read it before. I showed it.
I'm probably the only speculative Pac-Man Nocturne of the evening.
I think that's probably the only one, yes. Speculative Pac-Man Nocturne. Is there anything you want to say about it before you read it?
No, it's a very new thing,
Uh-huh. Awesome. Well, go ahead. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Speculative Pac-Man Nocturne. Let's say you're a simple man, and all you want is to gorge yourself on fruit and follow a vanishing ellipsis through the darkling labyrinth of your youth without being hounded by the specters of everyone you've had to leave behind, while your mouth moves up and down like you got something to say. Let's say your skin is the color of cowardice. Let's say you have a knack for sudden reversals. Let's say you're your own minotaur. Let's say you die 1,000 deaths trying to gobble every moon-colored pill you see, until you begin to question the efficacy of pills, because every time it's precisely the same. You wake alone and start running away. Let's say you dream of out-sprinting the dead with someone by your side. Let's say you dream her into being, and ta-da! She has a red silk bow in her hair, which matches her lipstick, and her eyelashes. She has eyelashes too. feet gently as moths in the hollow your clavicle makes, and that's how you know when she's dreaming. Let's say, for her sake, you start tonguing the pillow, and you find the nighttime around you grows brighter, discernible. Let's say you turn around and face your ghosts and charge them like a real minotaur would, only to find they move through you like a flute left outside for the wind to play. Let's say you and the Miz give birth to a host of sequels with diminishing returns. Let's say every day grows remarkably darker than the last, and you begin to wonder whether it's autumn or if there's a half-life to bliss. Let's say you wake to find the fear never really left, and it's just shifted form, like Indiana Jones snatching your gleaming idol, leaving you a gunny sack of sand in a metaphor wherein you have a temple, idols, rituals, that is to say, a culture. Let's say you try to come to terms with becoming a ghost, come to terms as if there's a bargaining table at all, or maybe there is, maybe that's all there is here. Let's say a part of you has always wondered if there's a little boy you can't see controlling you.
Excellent poem. That was Benjamin Aleshire with Speculative Pac-Man Nocturne. Thanks so much for calling in and sharing that, Ben. And thanks for introducing us to Skye, too. It was we published you in last summer's issue, and then Skye came to the reading we did at the Flint Ridge bookstore, which is how we met her. So, so thanks for that connection.
It was so fun. I'm glad we got to be at the last IRL one there.
Yeah, that was literally the last real-life reading we ever did before we switched to the podcast version.
Yeah, very prescient of you, Tim.
Yeah, I think so. it worked out. I was everything was already set up for doing everything over the internet. But thanks, Ben. It's always great to hear you, and good to hear from you again. Thanks.
See ya.
Yep. Bye. Okay, that was Benjamin Aleshire with Speculative Pac-Man Nocturne. Great title. Let's see, who should we do next? Mel Martino. Let's call up Mel. So the phone is ringing. And this looks like another friend of Skye's from University of New Orleans. Oh, let me mute that for a second. Mel Martino, thanks so much for joining us. Hang on, there's some static in the background. Okay, sounds like we're good now.
Cool. Hi.
Hi, so what did you have for us to share?
A poem I wrote before the pandemic hit.
Is there anything you want to say to introduce it?
Yeah. I guess it's kind of inspired by the first time I went to a library to like a story time, and it really got me excited about reading and writing as a child. So
excellent. That sounds like a perfect poem for the Rattlecast. So go ahead and share it whenever you're ready. This is East Bank Regional 96.
Yeah, thank you. Fingers run along a row of hard spines like gnarled sticks that skitter across dilapidated picket fences. Moby Dick laid upon Freud, laid upon goosebumps, laid upon in a dark, dark room. A circle jerk of literature splashes forth a hardback title, off the shelf and into my hands. Rainbow Fish. Cover bluest as Morrison's eye, firm as father's eye and shall and not. Its frayed paper corners release a musky, oily scent, left behind by hundreds of human hands that hustled hurriedly through its cerulean hues. This fish haunts dim hallway pages with its freckled opalescent flakes, once magical, now craggy aluminum foil, reeks not of coastline sea salts but dandelion seed nostalgia, and suddenly it's 1996. For most, summer means jump rope and tree climbing, but for some, it means the library becomes mother's most beloved babysitter. Unmoving dust dances into some unlucky asthmatic's nostrils as we children hopscotch between aisles. We semicircle our seated bodies, bound like ships to this literary lighthouse, as storytime serenade echoes in our conch ears. Before school and rules and bullies, there was you. Pandora's box of colorful characters and flip book picture plots that thicken and churn like butter, unfettered by complex syntax and 13 chain-lettered words. Illustrations defy grammar's regime. Rainbow fish scales glimmer like crystal wind chimes hung above our wooden porch, or the lavender line of translucent beads elongating the ceiling fan string. As I return the hardcover to its shelf, I imagine, somewhere in some small city, iPhones and tablets are tucked away in the backseat of parents' SUVs. A warm rug welcomes a conglomerate of curious kids whose eager eyes burst open like boils as they wait for fingertip spittle to pry forth the next page.
Excellent. Mel Martino with East Bank Regional 96. Thanks so much for sharing that, Mel. I sort of, a wave came over me of how much I missed the library, actually, which I hadn't thought of. But, ours is closed, and, I have kids who are 6 and 10 and love the story time, and wow, we really do miss it. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You have a good night.
Okay, that was Mel Martino with East Bank Regional 96. Let me try. I want to make sure I get to every first-time caller if we can. Let's see. This is Swiss.
Oh, hey.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So who am I talking to? It says Swiss?
Yes, this is Swiss. I am also in the MFA program with Skye and Nikki and a couple other people.
Excellent. Well, I'm so glad you could call in and share something. What? Oh, here, I found it. Okay. I was having trouble finding it because it was a couple of days. So Hymn to the Original is what you wanted to share?
Yes, a hymn to the original. I didn't know about the prompts. So.
Oh, no. I have to explain every time because it's prompts for some people who are here every week and want some to prompt them. And otherwise, we're just happy to hear any poems that you want to share. So is there anything you want to say about this to introduce it before you start?
Yeah, I actually did a workshop over this past summer with VONA, Voices of Our Nation's Arts, and got to work with the esteemed and amazing Willie Perdomo. And this was one of the prompts was to write a poem after A Hymn to the Evening by Phyllis Wheatley. And so this was my inspired poem.
Excellent. Thanks. Well, let's hear it whenever you're ready. I'll put it up for everybody.
Absolutely. A Hymn to the Original after A Hymn to the Evening by Phyllis Wheatley. They don't write praise songs about little black girls. They see no God worth exalting in bobos and cornrows, especially not in the more tomboyish ones. The ones they know are headed toward a life of pulling up the U-Haul in 2 days and packing it back up in no sooner than 9 months. Toward a life of dad hats and funky print button-ups, of joggers to achieve the masculine aesthetic, but still save room for our black woman thick thighs, which too save lives. So this is a praise song to little Kira. I almost wrote your name wrong. I rarely say it. Barely did when it was the only thing life let me hold constant, but you are eternal, even in your passing. So this is a praise song to you, Key, Mucka, Kiwa, Kiba, Bubba, Green, Marge in charge, so dubbed by your kindergarten after-school program. This is a glorifying of every fist thrown, every permanent hickey the ground left you after kissing your little brown body. And boy, did you two have a love affair. This is a thanksgiving for your hypersensitivity, even though it tornadoed through your still forming frame, threatening its escape through rib and skin, threatening futilely. This is a song lifting your dark times on high, holding you in every dark corner you refuse to cower in. The defiant seeds that army crawled through the deepest dirt have the strongest roots. You the proof, you the truth. This is a praise song to the sense birth, soul snaring, stare having skin duffel that holds the boulder of militant truth that is you. That is you. The well from which so many yous sprang. Spring. I praise your name, each name. Why? Because it's worthy to be praised.
Oh, that was excellent. That was Swiss with a hymn to the original. Thanks so much for sharing that. That was great.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thanks. Have a good night.
You as well. Good night.
Let's see. Yeah, that was Swiss with a hymn to the original. After a hymn to the evening by Phyllis Wheatley. Let me make sure. I want to try to get to everybody who is a first-time caller. There's a 504 number. Let's try 504. So the phone's ringing now for 504. And when you get a phone call from 818-850-7727, that's me. So be ready.
Been forward.
Well, the 504 didn't make it. Let's see. That sounds like another New Orleans person, I think. I think that's a New Orleans area code. Let me see. Let's call up. Yeah, it's hard to even. There's a bunch of people here. Let's see. Let us go to Patricia Rockwood. I think Patricia has a prompt poem that I saw. So the phone's ringing for Patricia Rockwood right now. I think Patricia's ringer might be off too. Let us try. Caitlin Buxbaum hasn't been on in a while. Let's call up Caitlin. Hey, Caitlin. How you doing tonight?
Good. I was trying to do two events at once, and so I was here for the interview, and then I went to another one, and there were Zoom bombers and all kinds of things.
Yeah, so that's why I don't Zoom. I'm like a control freak. Like I don't like Zoom. It's too many possibilities going on there.
Well, it's the first time it's happened to me, like a group that I was in, and then we finally got that figured out, and then this guy didn't mute himself and like picked up the phone and was having a complete phone conversation. We were just like, no. So, I decided to jump in because I really wanted to share my poem, and it was an awesome interview tonight. And Swiss that just read, that was an awesome
good stuff tonight.
Poem. So I'm gonna go back and listen to the stuff I missed later. But I have an astronaut poem for you.
We have. Is there anything you want to say about it before you read?
Two things. One, it was inspired by a podcast that I just found today, which you might be interested in, which I will talk about in a second. And then I actually have two versions of this poem. So after I read it, I want you to scroll down and you tell me which one you like better. Just how it looks, not how it's the same words. Anyway, okay. So this is Astronaut. Launched into the pool, she doesn't ask, where are all the bubbles? Because she knows this is not the simulation. This is the great and endless dark, an unforgiving vacuum that houses the children of the night, who swim, weightless, without water. Here, explorers find their common purpose, to push the boundaries of what we know, with liquid understanding, to meet the light on neutral ground.
Astronaut, Caitlin Buxbaum's prompt poem, and then let's look at the other form right here. So this is the same thing, but with line breaks. I have to tell you, I mean, I'm like a like an old school kind of person, but I like the simple first version. Like what we were talking about with Skye, with that that sort of minimalistic, but it's harder to do having as little punctuation as possible. But it guides the pace of the reading too. So I would go for the traditional line breaks myself. But that's just me. What do I know?
Well, and that's the one I wrote first, but the second version, so I've been looking, a lot of magazines have submission deadlines in 2 days. And so as I've been prepping submissions for some things, I'll find poems that I think are ready, but not for that magazine. So I've been looking at a lot of different magazines this week, and some of them that I like accept a lot of poems in that second format with the slashes for they're essentially line breaks. It just, and sometimes that works for me and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm just I'm an old-fashioned curmudgeon, I think.
Well, in general, I kind of am too. I still adhere to the 575 haiku form. God forbid.
Well, we're gonna have to cut you off and just say the 575.
Yeah. No. Tim, I could write you an essay on this, and we should totally talk about it at some point. But
that's all I'll say. But
okay. Well, anyway, the last thing I wanted to say before I let you go, or you let me go, whatever. The podcast is called NASA's Curious Universe.
That sounds good.
And the episode I listened to was called the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. Is
like the tank
this
that
pool
they go in. Yeah.
And I always think of space as the deep ocean. Like both of those things terrify me, and so I went looking for something that merged those things, and that's what I found.
Cool.
So anyway, great
awesome.
podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Thanks, Caitlin. Have a good night. Bye.
Yep. You too.
Okay, let's see how many people we can get through for the rest of the show. I think we have so many people that are waiting that I'm not going to give up on the people who didn't answer. Sorry, but you had your chance. Let's call up Jarrod Lacy. And hopefully, the other thing is, it's getting past time when people might be going to bed. So, hey, Jarrod, this is Tim with Rattle. Did you want to share a poem?
I did, Tim.
Awesome. Let me find it. You email it to us, right? Oops.
I did.
Okay, let me pull it up then. Is there anything you want to say about what it's about?
Sure. The poem is I just simply attribute it to a person who has come to terms with who they are via coming of age and confidence.
Excellent. And this is in Ma Poetry Magazine. Let me see if I can
That's
pull
correct.
it up.
It appears. Yeah, it's one of the two that was published in the first issue of Ma, and their theme was wild.
Excellent. So we show off these other magazines too. This is Ma, which I'm not familiar with. Is there anything?
Yeah, they're pretty new.
Yeah, is there anything you know about it, or that you can share?
One of the major things I know about them is that they do want to recognize more voices that have gone unheard, like people of color and LGBTQ plus, and so on and so forth. The handicapped, various people who you normally wouldn't hear.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's hear this. This is Animal Breath.
That's correct. Okay, and I'm ready whenever you are.
Yeah, go ahead. I have it up for everybody.
Sure. Okay. Animal breath. The craziness comes in lightning increments. Hard-headed memories chuck pieces of wrecks in and out of you. Here you are, a boy again, too quick for even a handshake to make an exchange and grow into a company. You were manageable despite those whispering buzzes of energy that urged you to risk a kiss from one of the funniest guys in high school, Old Beeman, who was squinch-faced cute and looked about high and invited your backside near his corn-fed thigh. Everyone is a Wolverine. Everyone is disease. You've grown, and sometimes afflicted by mental whizzes warping and whipping you stagnant and stolid. But when those days moons give off unlikely blues, your mind kicks and mouth overruns to go on a ripping tour to kill the beast of boredom and howl with the others who are brilliant when out of order. That was Animal Breath, and thank you guys so much for letting me share this.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That was Jarrod Lacy with Animal Breath. Thanks, Jarrod.
You're welcome.
Good night. And you can find that at Ma Poetry Magazine at MAW poetrymagazine.com. And Jarrod Lacy is Jarrod with 2 R's. Now, we are technically past time. Let me see. And the beauty of having it be a totally open lines is you can call in. If you wrote a poem for the prompt this week, you can still read it next week. But let's have someone we haven't had in a while. And I think we're going to have to close it out there. So sorry for everybody who is waiting. I don't know if you heard in the background, but my kids are starting to the natives are getting restless. They're starting to sing and stuff. I think they want to go to bed. So we'll call up one more guest. We'll call Gail Sosinsky, who I don't think we've had in a while. If Gail doesn't answer, we'll call someone else, and then that'll be the night. But you can share your poems next week too. Let's see. Hey, this is Tim with Rattle. Did you want to share a poem?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Let me try to pull it up. This is an astronaut poem. Yeah, here we go. Astronaut. Is there anything you'd like to say before you read it?
I like the challenges simply because I discover something that I didn't know I needed to say.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's the fun of having prompts. Yeah, that's why we love doing them.
Yeah. Okay. Astronaut. She walks weightless in the night, the weight of the mission dangling with her from the umbilical to her great tin can. Her tools, rebellious in the absence of gravity. Her breath, hiss and condensation. Her fingers, gloved sausages. Her task, the turn of a single screw. Slot set, turn made, threat conquered. She basks in earthshine reflecting from storm clouds necklacing her distant home. Warring winds obscuring the ground-bound view of pinprick lights that first called her to the weightless decades of past. When, held in Grandpa's arms, the old man pointed up and gave the pinpricks names.
Excellent. That was Astronaut by Gail Sosinsky. Thanks so much for sharing that, Gail.
Thank you.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, that's going to have to be the last caller for tonight because we're over 2 hours now. But to everybody who hasn't shared their poem yet, feel free to join us next week. It's a nice problem to have, not having enough time, I guess, even after we extended it to a full 2 hours. So next week's prompt is going to be, you can do your astronaut poem still next week, or we could do next week's prompt, which is this. We used randomgenerator.com to select 3 random words: fear, staircase, passage. Use all 3 words in a poem, or use the random word generator to pick 3 words of your own. That's the prompt for today. And if you go to randomwordgenerator.com, you can see it's over here. And you type in the number of words you want. So we do 3, and you can type in which letters you want. It's pretty cool. And you can do it by syllable or number of letters or what the letters are. It's a pretty interesting little website there. And so the prompt for next week is to use either our 3 words that we found, which once again were fear, staircase, and passage, or you can pick 3 words of your own. Of course, let us know what they are. And that can be the prompt for next week, or read your astronaut poem, or read whatever you'd like. And next week's guest on the Rattlecast, once again, is going to be Marjorie Lotfi. We've published Marjorie in, I think, 3 issues of Poets Respond. And she has 2 chapbooks, Refuge and another one, drawn a blank on the name. You can find her at marjorielotfigill.com. And that's going to be the guest next week, Tuesday, January 5th. And do note the special time. Once again, that's 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and it's going to be 8 p.m. in England, where Marjorie is. And that is it for the show today. Thanks again once more time for everybody who joined in and shared poems, and Skye Jackson for the great discussion and excellent poems. Always wonderful meeting the poets that we've come to know over the years. And that is all for tonight. Have a good night, and please do click the share button or like or something like that, because that always helps. Good night, everybody. See you soon.